Welcome, fellow seekers of challenge and triumph, to the SufferSooner podcast. Join us on a journey where ordinary souls embark on extraordinary endeavors. From the relentless grind of gravel to the punishing gauntlet that is triathlon, we've tasted our fair share of suffering. So fellow endurance warriors, let's lace up our shoes, strap on our goggles, and dive headfirst into the challenge, knowing that with every step, stroke, and pedal forward, we grow stronger together. All right, welcome to episode 29. We're going to title this one Transition Mistakes. And basically we'll just talk about, what we did this weekend.
Yeah.
We had ourselves that little sprint try, and then I think we're going to talk about some news. First up, I want to say follow us on Facebook. I finally made a Facebook page that's the SufferSooner podcast. So, you can interact with us. It'll go directly to me and Danny. We'll respond back. We'll have a little update on what we're doing in the local KC area. We'll also interact with, people who, Facebook message us all over the world. So we finally have a place to kind of like
engage.
Filter everybody and engage and stuff. Eventually, I think if this starts to take off, we'll get a website going and all that stuff. But for now, I think Facebook's probably at least somewhat okay.
You bring up a good point about the engagement side, especially in the local KC area, or even if you're, regional. We also have a nice little group application that we keep everybody posted with our workout calendar, like where we're going to be, when we have our group rides, and what kind of events we're looking at. So if you're in the area and you're interested in joining and you ever want to meet up with us and do a group ride with us, we can hook you up with that app and make sure you're connected with everything that's going on with SufferSooner.
Yeah. So, you definitely can, ride with us or work out with us or race against us, see where we're at.
Yeah, race against us. I tell you what, man.
Basically, pound us into the pavement. Yeah, that's
okay.
fine.
It's all right. Good luck. Good luck.
I don't mind losing.
Bring your fast bike.
Yep. Bring your fast kit, because we're not slouches. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Contrary to popular belief.
Yeah, we proved it a little bit this week too, but this weekend. But no, it was a great weekend. I know we want to get into some news here, but yeah, we're really looking forward to the engagement from folks, and we've had a really good following so far, and really had some good group rides. And last night we had a great one, and it was a lot of fun. And so love to see you guys. And so Travis, talk to us a little bit about some of the news, because I think we were trading some info, I think late last week, about this, and it's brought up a lot of questions, and we've been talking about this concept of this whole topic in some of our workout rides, and it's just one of those things. It's like so go ahead.
So the news is the person that won Ironman Texas, which happens in April, got his A sample and his B sample tested positive for doping. So the one that the professional that overtook the whole and won the whole race, his back in April, got popped for doping, and the story came out this week that he blames it on tainted chicken and eggs. Like basically a breakfast burrito that he ate before the race. So now, granted, again, this is the reason we talk about this stuff is because me and Danny are competitive. We're competitive in the sport, and we all. I don't think there's any pro out there or any competitive person out there that thinks that everybody is clean. I would love to see that I would love to see implications that the whole race was clean, but we know better, and we just kind of we accept that a certain percentage of people, willingly or unwillingly, like maybe he didn't know he was eating a tainted breakfast burrito, or maybe he knew that he was on something and he just tested positive. Again, I refer back to WADA saying that you are basically responsible for everything that you put in your body. And so when you get popped for something like that, ultimately the responsibility comes down to you.
Yeah. The thing is this isn't unique to triathlon. It's not
No.
unique to any one sport. All the major sports, have similar rules, and every time one of these athletes gets busted for something, there's always a reason, right? Now, I hesitate to use the word excuse because I think in many cases these athletes, especially at such an elite level, and when you talk about the high money sports versus a triathlon, which yes, there's some money in triathlon, but multi-million dollar athletes and now even billion-dollar athletes, they've got so many nutritionists and people around them that coach them that I'm not convinced that a lot of these athletes know what's going into their body, and they're just trusting the people around them. So it is hard sometimes to say that they honestly know that they're, you know, in violation. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So, I think that, for this guy to say pinpoint it back to a breakfast burrito or something like that, like, I mean, what? So was it a steroid chicken? I mean, most chicken in the market now is non-steroid and no antibiotics, right? So, I'm gonna guess it's just one of those things that, like, before we start talking about possible excuses and reasons, I know that's probably his either himself or he's got a publicist that's trying to get out ahead of it. You know, maybe a little bit of like reflection and transparency would be good here. And you know what? If the guy got busted, then it's like whatever your reasoning is, you got busted, dude.
Yep.
And it's I think the reality is I sort of have this number in my head, and I have nothing to back it up. But I'd be willing to bet 1 in 10 people out there
Yeah,
are
the
somehow, you know,
number 1 in 10, they did a research, they did an anonymous research poll
mhm,
at Challenge Roth, which is in Germany, and in one of the biggest triathlons. Basically next to Kona, it's like, have
yeah.
you done that one? It's
Okay.
put on by the Challenge family, and they basically polled all the amateur athletes, and
Mhm,
they asked the question, do you take PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, or
mhm,
are you on like TRT, or are you doing something that's affecting your performance?
mhm.
And it basically came down to 1 in 10
Did
answered
it really?
yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that's where
Yeah,
that 1 in 10 comes from.
yeah,
I personally believe it's a little bit higher than that. I
yeah,
think with triathlon and egos and males being what males are. I mean, we're all
yeah.
competitive and we want to be
Sure.
the biggest, baddest person on the planet.
Mhm,
I think it's probably a little bit higher than that, like
yeah.
maybe 1 in 8 or so. But
Well, and
I'll
it's
take 1 in 10. That's fine.
sure. Yeah, the thing is, it's sad for one, and I say it's sad because it's like, you know what, there are clear rules against it, and whether you agree or disagree with those rules, there are rules in place for the competition.
Yep.
So I think, if people want to have the discussion about, well, then can we just have a open division that doesn't care what you do? Sure, have that conversation. Like I, I'm okay with the concept. I understand why people are attracted to doing them. To your point, people want to be faster. They want to know what is the maximum they can get out of their bodies,
Well,
and
and the other
you're
part
driven to
too
that.
is let's talk about like age groupers like us.
Mhm.
We're in our 40s. We're doing our business. We got kids. We're
Yeah,
tired. We're trying to train. We're trying to train for this sport
yeah,
that involves almost 15 hours a week of
hmm,
training, and we're just tired. And we're just like, well, if you take a little bit of testosterone or you take a little bit of this X, Y, and Z, like you'll recover faster, you'll feel
right,
better, you'll be amped up a little bit, and so you'll be able to like perform better
right.
at all facets of your life. So it's very
Enticing.
and
Yeah,
very enticing for
mhm,
everybody. Like you're just like, oh yeah, I'm a little run down, oh maybe I need TRT, or oh I'm just so tired and fatigued, well maybe I'll take like a banned stimulant or
yeah,
something like that. I'll take Adderall. How many
yeah,
people are on Adderall? Like
yeah,
that's banned in competition.
yeah.
Like
Well, and
you can't be doing that.
the
Yeah.
access to this stuff is far more accessible than it ever has been, and you don't have to look very far to find that there are compounding pharmacies that this is not a new problem. It's been decades, at least in the last 12 to 10 to 20 years. There are pharmacies that will make this stuff available, whether above board or not with your doctor, right?
Yeah.
And even if it is above board and you're talking to your doctor about it, the reality is it's banned from competition. So, but I can tell you firsthand, I know people that have access TRT, right? And
Yeah.
they, for the exact things you just said, it's because I've taken a testosterone test. I technically have low testosterone, which is actually interestingly it's a fairly new concept. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I got low testosterone. Well, okay, but so people lived with that for centuries, and yet now all of a sudden we want to replace it. Okay, fine, but the reality is it's banned in competition.
Yeah.
So that's fine if you need that for your personal life and whatever. But if you're going to compete, just know you're not clean according to the rules, and we can all disagree with the rules and that's fine, but let's have that conversation versus trying to sit here and pretend like it's a fair competition based on the rules that are available. And then it puts people like you and I who, I'd be happy to take a test any day of the week,
Yeah.
because I know I in fact, the amount of supplements I take, and maybe this is why I'm where I am in the standings on things, but I don't take many supplements. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I just don't. So I'm
Yeah.
not worried about what's in my body because I know I don't take very much. But a lot of people won't even do that. And I think the reality is just accept the fact that there are some percentage of people out there that are a violation of the rules. And it's sad because you get to a point, and this kind of ties into this last weekend. Like, you get to a point where you're like, hey, you know what? I've made it to this stage of my triathlon career, and I'm actually finding myself near the top. And now it's like fractions of seconds, or small amounts of time that make the difference. And now you're in the margin of error for where that type of stuff can actually separate you from first and where you end up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, and I always kind of like, especially with age group athletes and stuff like that. I think the ignorance is bliss type thing. Like, they
mhm,
don't know that what they're taking may be
a
a
band
banned
item.
substance. Like,
Mhm.
not everybody is one like me or like you who look up our. I take a high blood pressure med.
Mm.
I made sure to look it up and see
Yeah.
if it was on a band.
Yeah.
Since it's not a SSRI, it's okay. I can take it. It's not banned for in competition or anything like
Mhm.
that. Anytime like you take a pill or whatever, like how many of us look up what we take? Like, oh,
Right.
this, fish oil, is it a
Right.
banned substance? Like,
Right.
like,
Right.
and and the thing is, the other thing is too, like, I do that because I coach people, and
Yeah.
and my integrity is based on the fact that
Mhm.
I am a clean athlete, and that um, you know, I believe in the hard work and the other stuff, to get to where you are. So,
Mhm.
like, you have to be able to, you know, I guess it's for most people who have doped, they say that living with a lie is worse than anything they've ever done. So I'm
See
like,
that?
I would just rather not. I mean, that's what Lance
Yeah.
did. He
Yeah.
was he just thought living with a lie was the worst part of it. So
Yeah, I mean, I think we should look at maybe we'll do an episode coming up here, especially in the off season, where we can get into some of these topics a little bit deeper. I think I say off season, but you know what I mean, like the winter time. I think
yeah, I think it's
it's
good
something
to.
we need to dig into a little bit.
I think showing the public, one, how relatively easy it is,
Hmm.
and how easy it is to pass.
Right.
And I feel bad for these people that get popped. I think that's, one, it brings the sport down. It just shows that there's people like this. It's I do like it, the fact that, like, people are getting tested, and the system somewhat works. But
Yeah.
I also just feel bad because I'm pretty sure, like, this kid didn't even know he
Sure.
was going to test positive. I'm sure maybe if his coach knew that he was, if the staff with him, they might have known. But who
Sure.
knows? I don't know the full story. I'm not talking to this guy. Like,
Yeah.
I just, I think in the future, when we do the podcast on doping, I think, one,
I,
you're going to be very scared about about what's going on and how
yeah.
easy it is,
Yeah.
and all that other stuff. So
Well, I think the other thing too is in these situations, these are tough situations all the way around for everybody involved, for the people that are clean and for the people that do get popped. I guess a couple of things. One, it'd be really interesting to talk to some people that have done this. Like, what are their motivations? Were they worried about getting caught? Did they think through the full consequences of it? And do they even care? Because maybe they don't even care. But the other side of that too is like, I don't want to sit here and assume intent or knowledge, especially around the guy from this last weekend, because whether he knew or not, again, is kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
What is relevant is the sample came back the way it did. There's an explanation for that. Whether it's a good explanation or not doesn't really matter. It's just what matters is what's the truth here.
Yeah.
And so so here's the thing: if somebody around him did this and he had no knowledge, that's the worst case scenario, right?
Yep.
Now, if he did this knowingly, whether he's willing to admit that or not, and he did this knowingly, then there's a reason for that. And what was that motivation? Was it driven by money? Was it ego? Was it and then ultimately, what does it really mean for the sport, and what does it mean for the other athletes? For
Yeah.
us that compete primarily from an age group perspective, what does it mean to us? Well, it means, for me personally, it means that I can't really sit here and compare myself to the people I don't know, and I don't know what their training routines are. But what I can do is I can look at the times and try to make myself better
Yeah.
and do that in a way that I know has integrity. And so as long as I'm using that as motivation to train for my training and to help myself improve, that's fine. But if I found myself in a situation where I got, second place to somebody and it was by just mere, splits, and I'm looking at that person and they clearly came out of nowhere, and just all of a sudden, like maybe a year ago you saw them somewhere and you're like, yeah, they're, I've seen that person before. And now all of a sudden they show up and they're, light years ahead. You're like, that's not a natural progression. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that starts to make you tilt your head a little bit. We had a couple cases of that earlier this year on some events that we did, where you're just like, you see these people come out of nowhere and you're like, wow, like that's weird, So
Yeah. I mean, you like you were saying, like the thing I do is I really don't care about what other people do outside
mhm,
of my sphere. I just care about what I do. I'm always trying to get better. And so yeah, you look like, oh man, what did the first place guy do in this event? And then you're like,
mhm.
okay, well, how far off am I? You know, and
That's
then
right.
and you're just like, okay, well, here's where I can improve. This my swim was 2 minutes slower, my
Mhm.
bike was faster, and my run was a little bit slower. So it's like, okay, so I got to get my swim and my run better.
Right.
Or you look at like a gravel event
Well,
or something like that, and you're like, well, he was a couple hours faster than me,
mhm.
so he really attacked this section of the course where I didn't attack that section of the course, and he was a little bit faster than me.
Yep.
So it's like
Yep.
you look at that and you just assume that everybody's on I assume everybody's on a level playing field, and I
Mhm.
just go, well, how do I get myself through coaching
Right.
and discipline and everything? How do I get myself to that point? And
Right.
that's and for me, a lot of it doesn't seem like, now if you were like, okay, Travis, you're gonna go to the pros, like how do you get yourself pro? Like that's I don't
Totally different
it's
conversation.
it's
Mhm.
they're on such a different level.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that's possible. Like that would be like where I'm like, well, I would have to do a lot of extracurricular
Yeah.
stuff. But like in the far as the age group, I'm always looking like, okay, so how do I get to the next phase of
Mhm.
my training? Like how do I
Right.
get to be, like, let's say 2 miles an hour faster over 100 miles
Mhm.
bike race? Like
Yeah.
how do I do that? Like,
Yeah.
you know, what does that take?
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
it's a
that's
yeah.
that's where I think we're coming from with this for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly. Well, I mean, it's gonna be fun to kind of dive into the topic. I say fun because I think it's more around, there's a lot of speculation around it. And again, I'd love to hear from, if there's anybody out there that like, somebody that's willing to talk about this, that has kind of gone down the dark path, if you will.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really interesting to hear like like what was like what transpired, like like what got you to that point. Um,
Yeah, because
but
I remember hearing an interview with Colin Chartier, who won the T100 series like 2 years ago or something like
okay,
that. He was saying that the reason he doped was that he thought everybody else was doing it, and so he
yeah,
felt like he had to do it to
yeah,
stay competitive.
yeah.
And
Mm,
I mean,
I guess,
like I
but
said, like
uh,
again, I don't know. Like
yeah,
that's what he said in an interview, and I have to
yep,
take that at face value.
sure, Yeah.
I understand. I can feel for the guy when you think that everybody else is doping, and
Sure.
the only way that you can stay competitive is by doping.
It's
The old Lance Armstrong
yeah, it's the
defense.
rationale, right? You're gonna do whatever you have to do to
Yeah,
rationalize it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So then you rationalize it, and
Hmm.
the fact is that he was the only he was the only one that got
But got caught.
that
Yeah.
got caught. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that he's
Yeah.
not the only one doping.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think what it comes down to, again, not to dwell on it here, but I think you said it. It's like the reality is the organizations, especially at the pro level or at the more elite age group level, there's not enough testing to know, and so when you don't have the facts, it leaves it up to people to create speculation, and then now you've kind of created this sort of alternate narrative that may or may not be true and accurate.
yep,
And so then it becomes, well, is it worth the investment to do all the testing? And that's sort of the thing. It's like if you're not going to have a rule, if you're going to have a rule that you're not going to enforce through testing, then why have the rule?
yeah.
So I
I
think
mean,
those are the
I
those are the questions that really have to get asked, I think. And it's like, then why have the rule and why make it apply to age groupers? Then might as well just make doping legal for everybody and from an
yeah.
age group perspective. And I don't know that I agree with that. I'm just saying, like, these are the questions that start to come up because logically it doesn't make sense to have a rule you're not going to enforce.
Yeah, the thing is you don't get tested by,
No,
WADA or the anti-doping until
nope,
you start winning a lot of races.
right. By
And
then, the damage is done. Like, what's they're going
yeah,
to go back and you're going to go back and strip them of their titles, and then the person that got second place missed out on 2 or 3 years of potential accolades from winning a race that could have propelled them to the next level. Like, because I mean, especially at a young age, if you do really well at a young age and age group, you got a path maybe to go pro in this and actually make a few bucks off of it. So, I
yeah,
mean, the damage is done. So I don't know. Again, I don't want to dwell on it here. I think it's a really interesting topic. We will definitely dive into this a little bit more, especially as we get into the winter, because there's a lot to talk about with it. And
yeah,
I think it's one of those things not many people think about, because most people and most, especially local and regional triathlons, are there to compete for the sake of competing. They're not thinking about the what it actually means, at the higher level, because it doesn't apply to them, and that's okay. But it is kind of one of those things that you kind of want to know that you're playing on a fair playing field.
well, and it's the
So,
same thing with the Olympics and stuff. I mean, the Olympics is going on right now. Like, I
mhm.
really want to believe that all of those athletes are clean. Like,
Sure, I want to believe that too.
I really want to,
Yeah,
but I
I want to,
can't.
but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't.
So cool, man. So
So
this is a good kind of segue, because we did the Matt Mason Memorial Triathlon, and not
yeah,
to try to tie any of the doping stuff to that, because
no,
I
there,
don't. I
you know,
here's the thing about that event. You walk into that event and you realize really quickly you've got a lot of like good natured, salt of the earth type of people that are there for a really really good cause,
yeah,
and are promoting a really positive message in what was a traumatic situation with Matt and his
platoon that went
platoon.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think that when we look at that event, number one, it's a really really, it's probably, I know we say this about a lot of events, but it truly is one of the best um,
it's the best
executed.
triathlon.
Yeah,
Like
and it's
I've yeah,
so well executed, and it's got the fanfare, like with the skydivers coming in for the national anthem
yeah,
and all that.
that's
It's got the
crazy, right?
fanfare of like a Super Bowl almost. And
Yeah.
it's like, but it's,
And
yeah,
then
it's a
two
small
big
event,
ass
but man,
cannons that
oh
go
my gosh,
off,
it's so
and like they
awesome.
got the guys shooting the guns, and oh my
Yeah,
gosh, dude, it
so
is such
yeah,
a great,
yeah.
a fantastic event.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of just real good quality people. And let's face it, the event doesn't, it draws some really, really talented athletes, but it also draws a lot of people that, this might be the only triathlon they do this year.
Yeah,
And they're doing it for good reason, good cause. And, I think, and just real quick, not to jump to the end, but I think one of my favorite parts was the lady at the end that they stopped the award ceremony, because she does this every year. I think it's for her brother. Is that right, for her brother? So,
yeah,
and I wish I could remember her name. I lost her name. But I think it's just such a down to earth activity and event. I love it. So I think you got a really good mix of athletes. You got some that are on
yeah.
the
You
more
have
elite
some that
side.
in the special forces. You have
So,
some
yep.
that are in Army, Navy,
Mm-hmm.
Marines, they all come out
Yeah.
for this. So you got some dudes that can throw it. Like, it's
Good.
very competitive.
It is very
And
competitive.
if you've
Yeah.
ever met a service member, you know that they are very competitive.
I think what's awesome is some of the guys that, and I don't know if it was this year, but I know in previous years, some of the guys that did the skydiving in, like they strip down and they go right into the swim.
Yeah, and they go right into the
they
swim, and
they
they
beat
do
half
the
the
whole.
people. Oh my
Yeah, they
gosh, it's
do all that.
awesome.
They do all of that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
It's such an awesome event. Like,
Mhm.
that's what I say when, like, it is unlike anything. And if you ever get the chance to do the Matt Mason,
Yeah, yeah,
Memorial Cowboy Up
yeah.
triathlon, definitely
Should
do
do
it.
it. So anyway, so let's talk about the weekend. So how did I know? We had the episode last week. We talked about sort of expectations of it and or lack of expectations because we haven't really been focusing our training on this type of event. But I think
No.
it turned out some good, some bad, and maybe some ugly. And I'll get to the ugly because I got that covered. But let's talk about your side. Yeah.
So, the one thing I've said, and I think I've said it here, but I know we've talked about it a lot, is that I swim better now than I used to,
Hmm.
and I finally have some swim confidence, and I'm just gonna keep carrying that through. So I
Hmm.
lined up at the front.
Yeah.
Like, it was basically, I think I was like, I don't know, maybe fifth or sixth person in the water.
Mm.
Coming from, I'm swimming with people that, are, natural swimmers that
Right.
started swimming when they were in high school. The guy that beat me and, beat everybody. He's swam since he was telling me swam since he was 5. And I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
I started swimming when I was 25,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like, so I started in the swim and I started up. And I figured I was going to get past, but I only got past once, and I hooked onto somebody's feet, and I just rode that all the way around. And
Hmm.
so I had probably one of the best swims of my career. It
Yeah.
hurt, like, don't get me wrong, it hurt, but it was I didn't have any other issues
Yeah.
like I usually do, and I came out of the water pretty good with
Nice.
with a pretty decent time.
You were the 14th person in the water, by the way. I just checked it.
Okay, yeah,
And
that
you
seems
and
about right.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, you were right there. I mean, we know a couple of the guys that were ahead of you, and
Yep.
yeah, you were definitely one of the first wave in. And what's funny is because the way that it starts out, like I lined up in the back because I am not so. Remember, I just started learning swim. First of all, let me get my excuses out of the way. I just started learning swimming about a year and a half ago,
Yep.
not even a year and a half ago. So I'm not good, but I was still waiting to get in the water, and you were out of the water and through transition, and probably through the first lap of your bike before I was actually in the water. Because I mean, it's just, and it's there's nothing wrong with that. It's just because there's so many people, and then
Yeah,
also
there's like, what, almost 200 people
yeah, a
doing the
lot of
sprint.
people. Hmm.
That's a lot.
And
That
a
was a
sprint.
lot of people,
Yeah,
and a
yeah,
sprint. And they
yeah.
also had a longer course
That's right.
that
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 had a lot
most
of people
people were
too.
doing
Hmm.
that I think had, like, I don't know, probably like 400 people.
Right. So it was, yeah, and I knew you had a good swim. I didn't see you come out, but I knew who you went in with, and I knew when they announced the first swimmer out that, and then of course, turns out he ended up becoming. I think he was the one that ended up winning overall.
Yep.
But when he came out, and then I knew you had to be right after because I saw our friend Adam. When I saw him come out, I knew you had to beat Adam. And no offense to Adam, it's just I knew you were a faster swimmer.
Yeah, so when I was
So
coming out, Adam was just going in.
okay,
So
yeah,
that's when he was
yeah.
like, "Holy crap, you're already done."
I know, right?
I
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah,
So
buddy."
yeah. So I knew you had a good swim, and yeah. So then you get through transition, right? Transition
Yep.
was pretty quick. I mean, it was. I think you probably would have liked it to be faster, but you had a fast transition, relatively speaking.
Yeah,
So
so like I said, like this wasn't like a targeted A race. So,
right.
like, if I was going to target this like an A race,
Hmm.
I probably would have set my transition up to just put my helmet on and then run with my shoes already attached to my bike,
Hmm.
and then just throw my leg over the bike and then strap them on as I'm pedaling out.
Yeah.
But the way I set transition up this time was just I got to transition, put my shoes on,
Sure.
strapped them down, put my helmet on, and then took off.
Hmm.
And I was like, I got out of transition and I was like, feeling pretty good. I caught up
Hmm.
to the guy that passed me on the swim. So I knew I didn't lose too many places on the
Hmm.
swim. And I knew, like, if I could just pass more people on the bike,
Yep.
then I have a really good chance of doing something special today,
Right.
and
Right.
on the day. And so that's what I did, and I put my bike legs on, and I just railed it as hard as I could. I tried. I think it's a 2-loop course, and for the first loop, for the first half of the first loop, I was like, all right, settle down,
Yeah.
get your heart rate, get your. I didn't have a heart rate strap. I didn't race with it because I was like, it has to be railed to be a sprint anyway. So there's no point in
She's like,
just
I
seeing
don't need a
how
heart
high it can go. Like, what are we?
It probably, you know, honestly. So on that, that's a good point because I had my bike computer didn't work on the bike section. It didn't sync up with my watch or whatever. So I couldn't really see any of my data. But to your point, like it actually didn't matter because I'm like, it doesn't matter because if I'm not feeling like I'm going to puke, I'm not going hard enough. Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you did. So yeah, none of the data matters. Like don't get so caught up in data.
Yeah.
Just
So
go out and freaking hammer.
So I went and I was trying to settle myself down and just go, okay, like, you know, you need to be around 280 watts,
Yeah.
you know, normal or whatever. And I was just like, I can't do that. I'm too amped up for whatever reason. I was like, I had a really good swim, and I was like, oh, this is a special day. So then I defaulted to the fact of 300 most of the time, 400 on the hills, and I was just like, hold on to that. Hopefully, it doesn't tank your run. And so that's what I did on the second lap. And so I came away with the fastest bike split, or the fastest bike time of the race.
Yeah. Number 1 overall on the bike was
Yeah.
freaking impressive.
Which is, you know, like I said, like, I mean, I was railing every corner. It was always on the gas. I thought I was doing horrible, but I mean, you know, I just think it felt horrible. Like it was just the whole ride.
Works.
Yeah. The whole ride just felt like I was just like, oh my God, my legs are just going to pop off.
Yeah.
It was railed from the gun.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then you get to transition 2. You make it through that pretty quick.
I get to transition 2, and then so that's when I like to put my socks on.
Yeah.
But since I did the bike so fast, I was still soaked from the swim.
Yeah, right.
So I couldn't get my socks on. So then I said, "Fuck this," and you know, sorry for all our younger listeners, but I said, you know, F this. I'm putting I just put my shoes on.
Yeah.
And I kind of almost fell over because I kind of got my foot stuck. And then I grabbed my hat and started running out of transition. But, you know, that cost me another like 20 seconds or so. You know, like I said, if this was an A race, I would have made the decision to probably not wear socks on the run and just go with whatever happens on the run.
Right.
And so luckily I didn't have any blisters or
saw a couple people that didn't have.
Yes,
yeah.
Our friend Nando ran without socks, and he had some sand in his shoe, and it just kind of
chewed it up pretty good.
Yeah, ate the bottom of his heel. So I mean, that's what you're risking.
Yeah,
trying to go fast.
That's why you asked me before the race. Like we were talking about socks versus no socks. I'm wearing socks. Like I know my feet will get shredded if I don't. So
I don't mind not wearing socks on the bike. That's totally fine.
Sure.
But on the run, I was like, man, when I just put the shoes on, I was like, man, I hope this works out well.
Yeah.
And so I left transition, and it was just the guy who won it overall was in front of me, and the guy that came in, you know, second, or the first person, because it's a wave start, so you don't really know where you are, and that's the problem with wave starts, is that you don't know where your competition is, because they could have started the swim. They could be a horrible swimmer but a really good biker runner, and just start later.
We got some. Yeah, I can talk about that.
Yeah,
so, tell you all about that.
So then I crossed. Basically, you know, I crossed the finish line, and it's 1, 2, 3. You know, the first, second, the guy who won it overall crossed the finish line first, and then then the guy who took it in, like, I don't know, he's like a 29-year-old or something like that, and then it was me.
Yeah.
You know, so and then, but I didn't stack up as third overall. I ended up taking 8th overall, I want to say.
Yeah, I don't. I know. So an age group's what we really focused on.
Yeah.
First,
so age group, I had third.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. So you had third overall in the age group, and you had 6th overall. I think. You take out the relay teams, you had 6th overall across all age groups, and which is obviously very impressive, because you don't expect to have those kinds of days. But like you said, it was something special. And there's the pictures. So yeah. So you got third place in the age group, which
third
is nice.
Place, you know, and I don't look like it for sure. I don't have that. The second place guy is a little skinny, and then
Yeah.
of course this guy is a. I think he is a. I'm not gonna. He's in the service, and
Yeah.
he's just. He. This is. He's a. He's a big dude. He's a
Yeah.
tough guy, and
Yeah. Yeah.
power to him. He freaking railed it, man.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
It's impressive.
yeah,
So, um, yeah, and I mean, I think it's funny that you say that because like the way with the way that the start and everything sets up, like you said, you really don't know where you're at on the course, and
yeah,
so you get somebody like myself. I think I probably was a good example of this for people because my race was not quite as clean out of the gate, so I had a horrible swim. I was just to cut to the chase. I was third to last place overall out of coming out of the swim. When all the dust settled and everybody got their swims done, I was third to last place out of the swim, out of like 200 and something people, almost 300 people, I think, in the distance. So to say it was a horrible swim is an understatement, and so it was not good, and we'll just leave it at that. So my goal for the race really was just I wanted to have a good swim, but I knew it may not happen because I haven't been putting a lot of pool time in, but I had some really good.
yeah.
Um,
You were
I
coming
was coming around
from.
pretty good,
Yeah,
like
you were
in the
doing
last
pretty
week.
good. I
Yeah,
figured, like my 500-yard time is about 8 minutes, and that's
sure.
pretty much what I did.
Yeah.
This
Mhm.
in, and then you're like 13 minutes. So then when
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
so it's not shabby. It's not
Just
bad.
just not good. It's
Just
not top by any means, but it's at least
no,
somewhat,
but
in the middle of the pack or slightly the
yeah,
bottom part.
yeah.
Yeah,
We
so
just
to
want to
get
be in that bell curve, and you're
exactly.
basically in that bell curve. You're right
Yeah,
there.
so the to be third from last is a tough spot to work from.
Yeah,
But my goal was I wanted to have a decent swim, which and then I want to have a really good bike because we had good bike fitness coming off the Colorado trip, and really the bike's been feeling really good the last few weeks. And then have an okay run. I want to have a decent run. And so what ended up happening was, the horrible swim, and then spent a lot of energy there. Got on the bike and just like you hammer, hammer, hammer,
yeah.
ended up negative splitting my laps because 2 laps, and the first lap was like 2 miles an hour slower than the second lap, and so felt really good on the bike. It hurt a lot, but I felt good. And then got to the run and tried to put as much in. And now looking back, I'm starting to think, man, maybe I could have ran a little faster because I actually ran faster on my third mile than I ran in the first two. So I think I
Yep.
probably could have paced it a little bit better. But at the end of the day, I mean, I ended up so I had the fourth best bike time overall behind you,
Nice.
of course.
Yep.
And I was only like a minute behind you, I think. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty close for the top four. And I like to think that I could have maybe finished second to you, not fourth, but I don't think I was going to beat you. You had really good legs that day, and the course is much your power profile suits that course far better than mine.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's more of a rouleur course. It's
mhm,
sharp ups, rolling course.
yeah,
I that's really kind of my bread
that's
and
your bread
butter.
and butter. Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
it's
yep.
either if it's flat or if it's lightly rolling, I am going to
Mhm.
destroy people on. If it's
And you
going
did.
up, yeah, and if
You
it's
did.
going uphill,
Yeah,
then yeah, I'm not.
yeah.
It's
It's
not. It's
okay.
a different thing.
Yeah.
So
So the bike actually clawed me back quite a lot, having the fourth best
yeah,
bike overall. And then my run actually ended up being in the top 20% of the whole age group anyway. So I went from third to last overall to I finished eighth in the age group,
yeah,
which
which is
um,
awesome.
which is a great comeback. It would have been, in fact, it was. I'm not gonna lie. There was a portion of the swim I just about grabbed onto the canoe and just told him to pull me back in because I was done. Like I was in the death spiral. But I'm glad I stuck it out and ended up at least salvaging a respectable finish, a top 10 finish. But for the age group. But yeah, no, I was really excited because when I got done, I knew you had a good day because of the swim. I knew, and I had a feeling your bike was good. I was just didn't know about your run. And when I found out, we went over and looked at the board, and I saw you finish third. I was like, I think that time's going to hold because again, you just don't know until everybody
Yeah,
finishes. But I mean, there aren't many people out there that will be in the top 3 to 5 that didn't line up towards the front. You know what
yeah.
I mean? So I think you had a pretty good chance of holding on what you did, and that was just awesome. So great job, man. It was an outstanding weekend for you. So
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was, if you take away what happened to you on the swim,
sure.
I mean, that would have been a great day for you too. Like, I mean,
Yeah, it's okay.
the bike and the run were fantastic for you. I
Yeah.
mean, like
Yeah.
that was,
I was only like think 30 seconds a mile off my 5K PR. And I was
yeah,
off of a horrible swim and off of a hard bike. So
yeah.
which really just tells me I need to go out and reestablish my 5K pace because
It's
I'm
about
sure
time to, yeah,
about time to I mean, there's definitely been which is really interesting. Let's bring this back to some of the training because haven't been doing a ton of running this year since the marathon in February.
yeah,
And I think everything's just been basically the bike fitness and then a little bit of swim here and there. It's just impressive that the bike fitness has carried the run as well as it has. And I think what it really shows is that the consistency of the bike and the amount of volume of the bike means that I think my fitness level, and I have to think it's probably the same for you, like the fitness level has changed dramatically.
yeah,
And it means that now I think we probably tapped out that source of fitness gain. Now it's time to look for a different source. And we've talked a lot about like, okay, so what's our training going to look like next? Because we've still got a couple gravel events this fall, and then we've got some goals for early next year in the winter. I think it's really exciting because if we can get any kind of the gains out of the next block the way we have out of the last block, because
yeah,
we're going to change the stimulus, we're going to change the types of workouts, we're going to change to being more strength focused and functional strength and all of that. I'm really excited because I'm like, hey, I think like we start to see where you can see that the goals are attainable.
yep,
And we talked about one of the goals now is maybe Travis. I mean, maybe you come back and take first in the age group at a minimum next year. Maybe compete for number one overall. It depends on if the guy shows up again this year, the
yeah,
collegiate
exactly.
athlete. But
Yeah,
even if he does, like it's close. Like
it's
you're in a.
very, it's yeah,
It's very possible. Yeah.
and the thing I like to say is like it's not going to be easy. Like
Oh
no one
no,
ever, it's
will not
never
be easy.
easy.
Will not be easy.
It's never easy. You just go
No.
faster,
Yeah. Right.
and that's what we're talking about. I mean, you know, we kind of jokingly saying if you didn't feel like throwing up, then you
Yeah.
probably weren't racing hard enough. And during the run, this is probably one of my fastest 5Ks that I've done.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
25 minutes. Um, I took a sip of the water at the first aid station and I almost threw that thing back up. I was like, we are not drinking water
If
on the run
if
now.
if Katie Renner was there, she probably appreciate it. We talked to her before the race
Yeah.
on check-in, and she's like, just make sure you get past the first aid station or don't
Yeah.
throw up there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then and our local group too was taking bets on whether or not I would
Mhm.
throw up before or
Yeah,
after
yeah,
after the crossing the finish line.
it's
And
funny.
I luckily I just got water at the finish line because it
Yeah,
took me a while to settle down. But like I say,
gotta push.
you have to push, especially if you're racing. Now, if you're just finishing, that's fine. Like you
Mhm.
just do whatever you need to do. But like if you're pushing on a sprint, like it's hard. It's
So,
very hard.
oh yeah. So I mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot of people that do this event that are not in it for the quote race of it. They're in it because they want to participate in the
Hmm.
event. We didn't talk about this, Travis. I think we're gonna have a nice guest on next week, right?
Yeah,
So
next
we're gonna
week
have
I got them
one.
confirmed this week.
Nice.
Follow the Facebook page because then I will put I'll leak. I'll start
Oh,
leaking what the next podcast is about.
how about
So
that? How about
so
that?
then you guys can interact and ask questions before we
Yeah,
actually record it, and so you can, you know,
can
get
help shape the show a little bit.
yeah help shape what's going on. So
So we're gonna have a guest on, but one of the questions I'd be really interested in is like, how many first timers are in an event like this, and
yeah.
first time triathlon period, not
Yep.
just first time for this event. But what's interesting is there are a lot of first timers. I don't know a lot. I don't know what that means, but there's several. One of the things I noticed, like there's a lot of people that just are doing the event, which is great. There's nothing
Hmm.
wrong with that. There's a lot of people that are also racing the event.
Hmm.
Because of my pathetic swim, I was in the section of people that were probably just there to just to complete the event,
Yeah.
which is fine. But, you know, I think it comes back to if you're just going to do the event, nothing wrong with that. But if you do it a second year in a row, like you think you probably want to like achieve something like I want to do better than I did last year. The number of people I saw on the bike course and on the run course, but on the bike course specifically, that they would pedal up the hill to get up the hill, and then they would stop pedaling to coast the downhill.
Hmm.
And it's like you could have been, I would be willing to bet that these folks could have been 2 miles to 3 miles an hour faster just by easy pedaling down
Yep.
the hill, which would help them recover for the next hill, by the way.
Yep.
But it would also keep their speed up, and they would be recovered. They would get there faster. It's like such low hanging fruit to improve your times. And there's a lot of people that they just think that, oh, if I just recover by coasting on the downhill, it's like we've said this before on the podcast, but it's like just the amount of people I saw. And then on the run I saw so many people that would sprint and then walk and sprint and then walk and then sprint and then walk. I'm like, oh boy, like like
Yeah.
you're making
I
it
mean,
harder on yourself there, dude.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hardly, talk about my coaching and stuff, but that is one thing that I teach all my athletes is
Yeah.
how to ride those rolling hills.
That's right.
It's a skill, and it
is.
needs to be learned. And once you learn it, you're so much faster. You're just
So that's a really good point. You talk about your coaching, because I know how you treat your athletes, and I know you and I've talked about this too. But I know, like, if there's anybody, especially if you're interested in learning more about how to just be a more consistent and faster cyclist, especially with the types of courses you're talking about, if you're afraid of rolling courses or sharp hills, like, you
or
should really
hills
talk.
in general.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should really talk to Travis about coaching, even if it's just a short-term stint, because
Yep.
I will tell you, when we first started riding together a few years back, I was a lot the same way. Like, I look at a hill on our normal route right now. I look at one of those hills and go, oh my gosh, guys. Now you just don't even think about it.
Yeah. Now you're holding some of the KOMs on some of our local rides. Like you're just,
just don't care about them.
Yeah. You're like I say, like you get to a point in your riding career where you just don't really care about the hills or whatever.
Right.
Like you just become so efficient that it just doesn't matter. Just you're like, okay, well, I won't be going as fast. Okay.
Yeah,
whatever.
I think that because you had the best bike time, like, it's pretty evident that you know how to attack this type of profile, and you know how to coach it, and you know how to. So I would just encourage people, like, especially if hills are something that you struggle with, or rolling terrain in general, or even flat terrain.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a couple of sessions or something, I think it'd be a really good idea. And I'm not trying to pump the coaching side too much, because I know, but it's just, I think there are so many people that just need some advice and they don't know where to go to get it. And so
Yep.
I know you're always available and willing to help people. And, even if you don't sign up for the coaching, come out to one of the group rides and you have opportunity.
Oh yeah,
to see it
you can
firsthand.
talk to me. Like if you want to talk to me about
we talk
riding,
about this stuff all the time.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. This is what we do. That's why we decided to start a podcast, because now we just get our conversations out there. So,
but yeah, it was a great time. I think, like I said, I'm really looking forward to doing it again. Which, if don't know how many people picked up from episode to episode, but last week we were sitting here thinking it would be the last Cowboy Up triathlon, and then we find out at
then
the
a
event,
little birdie told me that it was going to go on for another year.
Yeah,
and
so
maybe a year after that. So
we'll see where it
yeah,
goes.
so
we can only be so lucky that it keeps
Yep.
going that long.
Yeah,
So,
we I think from the event, I think the race directors and the race organizers saw how much the community really appreciates this event, and they want to keep it going. So I think, and we'll
dive into that.
We'll
next
find
week.
out. Yeah, we'll find out more about it tomorrow. Not tomorrow, next week. But we'll find out more about it and see, kind of, what was going on, and what we can do to make sure that it continues to be
Exactly.
a yearly thing up here in Kansas City. And I mean, I know people that have come from, Iowa, Colorado. They've come to this race. It is, like I say, if you're going to be in the Midwest in August, the first weekend in August, this is a race.
Put it
that
on
you
the
should
calendar.
Yeah, you should definitely do.
Yeah.
And I don't say that about other like I love all the races that I do, but there's few that I would tell my friends and family, like, hey, you should come and do this if you can.
Yeah. Well, that's part of what we're trying to do here, is bring the awareness to some of these things too. I mean, there's a few hidden gems here in the Midwest, and I like to think we've helped expose a couple of them to more audience. And this is another one that we would say, depending on when you're going to be here and what your interests are, you've got a short and a long course to pick from. And I tell you, I didn't know what to expect going into the short course. It was a lot of fun. I'm really glad we did it.
Yeah.
So
It's always, that race has always been the funnest race I've ever done. Even when I had 2 years ago I had a really bad swim like you did,
Hmm.
and I was almost throwing up in transition because I swallowed so much lake water. But I I still had fun the rest of the day. I
Yeah,
mean, one bad swim that's basically my fault for not training for it
sure.
is not my problem. That's
No,
not that's not the race's problem. That's
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 right.
a me
That's a
problem.
it's a Travis problem.
That's a Travis problem. So
Good
yeah,
stuff, man. Well, I'm looking forward to next week and learning more about the whole Cowboy Up situation. We're gonna not often we get to spend this much time on one event, but it's again it's such a important event I think in the area and for all the good reasons. So looking
yep,
forward to it.
yeah. All right. Well, let's see. Do we have any lessons that we learned from this thing?
Yeah, I learned that I need to be a better swimmer. That's what I learned. So
Yeah.
it's funny.
What
Well, you go ahead.
on the better swimmer? What do you think? People that are in
Yeah,
your situation, like, what do you think are some
yeah.
good ways to become a better swimmer?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, I think that number one, being an open water swim, I had some, like I said, I had really good pool sessions the week leading up. In fact, so my confidence in the water has grown tremendously in the last year, and I felt like this last week I was probably had the highest confidence going into an event. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so so I think all that what really happened was it got out in the water and I had one bad moment where I swallowed a bunch of water, like kind of like what you were just talking about, and then it
Yep.
started a downward spiral. And like once it sort of got into that oxygen deficit and then you're out in the middle of the lake, I think it all just spiraled out of control. It starts to become a little bit psychological, but then also physically you're exhausted because you stopped, you had to get your bearings, you had to try to clear the throat out and get to breathing again. But I think what I'm gonna we just started on this week was went back to the pool. I didn't go. I was wanting to go back Monday. I want to go right back to it. Like when I have a
Yeah.
bad this happened earlier in the year with the gravel event. Like once I had like a bad moment, I was like, we're gonna get right into it and get it right back to work and get it figured out. And so I skipped Monday because I was just not feeling great Monday because of the lake water. Sinuses were all jacked up.
Yeah.
I mean, they were sinuses. I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
But Tuesday jumped in and spent, I think it was 45 minutes of the hour in the water was spent doing balance drills.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Yep.
by the end of that, it's like, okay, now the balance is starting to feel like it felt better than it ever has. And so now every pool session from now, because I don't have any other triathlon scheduled this year, but every pool session, I'm going to incorporate more and more of just those balance drills and not worry about the time and the speed and all that. Because I actually, believe it or not, actually had some faster 25 and 50-yard swims in the pool the other day. But don't worry about all that stuff. Just get back to the fundamentals. And
Yep.
it's funny because even like the pro triathletes that we listen to and follow, how many times they talk about like in their prep sessions, they go back to the basics on some of
Yep.
the like the basic, side kick drills, 616 drills, and all those types of things. Like, and working on just very fundamental things in swimming. And so I think if I can get the balance back, which I've clearly lost in the open water, and then I think also just getting more open water experience, which is really hard around here because Smithville Lake, where we swim at, is it's tough to swim there very, many times of the year. So I think just getting more open water swim experience will be helpful, but that's stuff I can fix between now and, this event next year or
Yep.
another event next year. So
Yeah. And yeah. I mean, you're just so you're having like issues that most
mhm,
all beginner swimmers have.
mhm.
Like I can get splashed in the face, swallow a bunch of water now, and just keep swimming like it
Yeah,
wasn't a thing. Like I can cough, I can blow my nose, whatever I need to do in the water,
mhm.
just because I've swam so much. Like I've been swimming for almost 20 years now.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Doesn't
you're
bother you.
yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't bother me. So like I said, like you're having like you know I swallowed water. Well, I got splashed in the face on that swim too,
Mhm,
but since I'm used to it, I
mhm.
guess,
The
and it's
experience
happened
side.
before, and
Mhm.
I've had these experiences before. It didn't faze me
Right,
as much. Now
right.
I have had times where I've freaked out in the water. I mean,
Sure,
that doesn't ever go away.
sure.
So you just need like and I'm saying this to all the beginner swimmers
Yeah.
out there in the world, the Hulkamaniacs out there, that when you even if you're a good swimmer, you still have these issues,
Hmm.
and it's all about, I like to talk about it. You have the two brains. You have your lizard brain and your monkey brain. The monkey brain does all the high cognitive stuff, the
Sure.
planning, all that other stuff. The lizard brain sits there and tells you whether or not you're going to die. And
That's
so
right.
what happens is when you get splashed in the face like that in the lake, and you haven't lived, it's one of the
You haven't
few
done enough
times
times.
yeah,
Hmm.
done it enough times and survived enough. Your lizard brain just takes over and says, "We're gonna die."
Yeah.
And
Right.
we're
Yeah.
just gonna straight die, and panics. And whereas when I get splashed in the face, my lizard brain goes, "We're gonna die," and then my monkey brain takes over and goes, "No, no, no.
It's fine.
Remember, we've been splashed in the face like 7
Yeah.
times, like
Yeah. It's good.
just this morning. You'll be
That's
fine.
right.
It's
That's
all
right.
right. It's
Yeah.
calm down, buddy. Not time to
Hmm.
panic."
It's too funny.
And so it's just the experience will just keep coming. And like
Yeah.
I said, like and if for all of you guys that don't know, like me and Danny swim together. Like he swims
Hmm.
in my lane with
Hmm.
me.
Yeah.
And so he gets, and I'm a big guy and I move a
Takes
lot
up
of
a lot.
water.
Takes up a lot of
Yeah.
water gets displaced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's used to getting bumped around. So
Yeah.
we just need to take that
Yeah.
scenario to the open water, because really the reason that the open water is so scary for most people is you can't see anything. You don't know
Yeah.
what's going
Yeah.
on. You can't
Right.
even see your hand in front of you. So you don't know where your position is, your body position
Hmm.
is. You don't know where anything is. You don't know
Yeah.
if you're bending your elbow to pull through or if it's just
Hmm.
straight arm. Like your
It's all
whole
feel.
yeah,
Yeah.
your whole awareness goes away. So it's almost like swimming the lane blindfolded.
Well, it's actually why I think the Chattanooga swim last year was, aside from obviously it was a downriver swim, but even when we swam upriver to get our warm up in, or our shakeout swim the couple of days before, the swim was so much better in that open water because you could see, like,
Yeah,
that
you can
water
see.
was so
Yep.
much more clear, and it's not crystal clear, but it's so much more clear than the lakes around here. The lakes
Hmm.
around here, almost all of them are man-made lakes, and they get a lot of a churn from the rain and all of that stuff. Or just they're just dirty, like not
Yep.
dirty, like disgusting dirty. They're just muddy, like they got a lot of sediment in them. So you just can't see, and I think that's the big difference, and why, like, other swims maybe didn't bother me as much. But yeah, I think you're right. It's like I said, that's why I describe it as like sort of that downward spiral, because I think the key will be building the confidence and the ability to feel that balance and work more off of feel.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's a thing to like blindfold yourself swimming in a pool, but it's like, it's like one of those things, like maybe that's not a bad idea. And so it's like there's all sorts of things you can try, but I think the reality here is fundamentals, get back to the good
Yep.
balance and form, and trust the balance and form, because that's what helps you swim in a pool, and that's what's going to help you swim in an open water situation too.
Yeah, and the more you can feel, like the more you can go to the pool and feel the balance and stuff will help you more
Yeah,
in
exactly.
feeling what you're doing in the
Hmm.
water. Like
Hmm.
a lot of people are kind of like shocked that I'm like, "Oh yeah, I saw so and so came up," and they're like, "How do you even know who that is?" It's like, yeah, because all I'm thinking about is my form, and then I'm just looking
Yeah.
around. Like I don't have
Oh,
to think about anything else.
I forgot to I forgot to say that was the other thing, that the second, so when I had to stop a second time in the water, my goggles fogged up,
Oh
because
no.
they were remember I told you I had
Yeah.
my goggle situation was, so I used an old pair of goggles, and apparently I forgot to put the baby shampoo on the inside of them.
Oh man.
And so I got out past the first buoy, and the goggles all fogged up. I couldn't see to sight anything.
Yeah.
And so I barely caught the glimpse of one of the lifeguards with the float thing. And I said, I can't see. I can't see anything.
Can't see.
I can't even see the sight. Like, I couldn't see anybody in front of me. So that was another stop that I had to make and get those cleaned up. And of course, once again, like, because I was already on that sort of heightened, I wouldn't say panic, but I would definitely say I was on that heightened sort of anxiety. And it was like, okay, I can't see now. Great. So then it was bad. But again, I come back to swimming. We talk about this a lot. Swimming is so much about the feel, and
Hmm.
you got to be in tune with that. And if you're not in tune with that, you will panic.
Yep.
Like, you will go into the downward spiral. And so,
Because then
yeah,
once you start panicking, you carry a lot of stress up
tension.
in your
Hmm.
in tension in your upper body and in your other muscles, and
Yeah,
all those muscles, when they're all tense, they all need oxygen, and the
that's
one
right.
thing that you don't have
It's
access to
oxygen.
constantly is oxygen in the water.
Y-
So it just
And
compounds, and then, like I say, then the lizard brain takes over
that's right.
and basically tells you that, convinces you that you're going to die, and you're on. It's hard to come back from that.
And I'm going to chalk this up to the things that those of you that have been swimming since you were a 8-year-old or whatever, like I don't want to hear about it because you guys didn't have to. You don't have to deal with this, okay? Because you already went past all that when you were 8 to 10. You don't even remember it, okay?
You don't even remember.
So it's like
Like,
natural for you. You're like a fish in water now. So I don't want to hear about it. But
yeah.
those of us that started swimming when we were 40 plus, like
Yep.
it sucks. Let me
Yeah,
just put it
it
that way.
sucks.
But it's
Yeah.
okay. It's fun. It's actually, you know what? Like now that I'm out of it, like in the water, it sucks. But now that I'm out of it, it's like, you know what? It's just opportunity to get better.
Yep.
And you know, it's going to be a journey. It's a challenge that I'm kind of looking forward to. And I went from a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, where I never wanted to swim. Right. And we talked about it.
Yeah.
I came to a few of the open water swims we do as a group, and I didn't want to deal with it. Now it's like, I actually look forward to going to the pool, and it's actually a fun workout. It's just now it's just building the confidence even more. So it just all translates to the open water, and it'll be fine. But it's just, it's been a fun journey, and I'm actually enjoying it. So it's just another challenge. You got to get past it. So good stuff.
Yeah, one of my lessons would be, I need to definitely make the decision whether or not I am racing it to race it or racing it to finish it. So, like I said, there's a difference. I know it doesn't sound like, there's both racing in there, but if I'm looking to podium at something like this, now that I think I can, and I would set up like we were talking earlier. I would set up my transition a little bit earlier, a little bit better, to cut down on the times there.
Sure.
That's basically the difference. Like yes, I would love to run faster. Yes, I'd love to swim faster. Yes, I would always love to bike faster. But you have to also set yourself up for success in these types of situations. So
Right.
if you're racing for a podium, then you need to. I see this so many times with my athletes that they're really good, and but they won't do, like, let's say you find that a tire and tube combo saves you 80 watts, and that's not they'll just be like,
amount.
oh yeah, it's not a small amount. We have a couple athletes here that are like, well, I don't want to get a flat, so I'll just race in the gator skins. And it's like, you are robbing yourself almost of 80 watts of aerodynamic and rolling resistance drag, and you're trying to race for the podium.
Yeah.
So if you're racing just to finish, if you're just racing to finish, then sure, you definitely need to just make life easy for yourself.
Sure.
But if you're racing for the podium, you have to take some chances, and the chances are that, like,
get a flat, you get a flat,
or you need to, or you invest in the learning how to do a flying mount, or whatever you feel is your low hanging fruit of what you can do, or you're gonna run the 5K in carbon shoes. Like, if you're racing for the podium, like, that kind of stuff comes into play, because those are the marginal gains that you're searching for.
Yeah.
Now, if you're just racing to race, which you're trying to do better than you did last year, then yeah, training and all that kind of stuff. Like, but my lesson is that I need to be better about deciding which races I'm actually racing for the podium.
Yeah, I think this, and it is such a really, it's easy on this one to kind of come back and and pick at that, because leading into this, we really didn't have an expectation because we weren't sure, right? We hadn't been training for this, like we said. We were just relying on our long course fitness, if you will.
Well, I was kind of hoping that I'm always hoping.
Yeah, that you're close.
That I'm very close to the podium, right? Like, I never expect to go to a race and just end up winning it or whatever.
Right.
But I need to be better at saying, like, okay, I'm gonna go all in, so I might as well set myself up for all in.
Yeah. I think that's kind of where I was going too, because I think if we had approached this differently and said, you know what, no expectation, but we are going to go ahead and, like, hey, you know what, I'm going to put everything into this thing and just go all out for it. You would have set everything up a little differently. I think what makes it a little bit more frustrating, especially because I look back at the results and I'm like, you were only a few minutes away from first place in the age group, and when it's easy to do this. Hindsight's 2020. It's easy to go, oh man, I could have just done this different. Well, guess what? Next year, that's not going to happen because I'm going to do it. I'm going to set it up to win. And I may come up short, but I'm going to go ahead and set it up to win. I'm going to put the effort in. I might as well just, give myself every possible chance. If we had gotten done with this and you finished in like 8th and I finished in like 20th, we might be going, you know what? It's okay. It's still a good time. But I think now that it's like, oh, wow, we really, really are that close to being able to possibly win the age group. Like, now, it's like you get a little taste of that and it's like, all right.
Yeah.
So this is fun.
I know, and I tell my athletes too, like when they're racing and stuff, I'm like, I kind of remind them on the goals, but for me, like since I coach myself, it's just like I don't have the goals. Like I have goals, but
goals, but you didn't have. Well, maybe the other way to say it would be there wasn't the expectation and maybe not the confidence that my gosh, I could be a number one. I could be number one in the age group. Like. Nothing about the training and the lead up to this event had me going, I think Travis could be number one in the age group because I don't know. I have no perspective of what the times are and all that. And we hadn't, like I said, we hadn't really trained for this to say, hey, we're going to be able to go run a 5K that's damn near our PR 5K pace, that kind of stuff. Because the training didn't lead up to that. So to put it all together off of sort of the long course fitness, the long events that we've done, imagine what happens when you start to sharpen it a little bit, turn this into an A race for next year. And that's where it's like, well, maybe 4 more fast people show up and maybe you only finish 5th. Well, that's okay. But if you show up next year and you're a minute and a half or 2 minutes faster than this year's time, and it's a comparable day with the same course, like you're going to feel pretty dang good about that. Like, I accomplished it. So kind of tying this back to the very first thing that we talked about, the purpose of this has to be around your personal improvement.
Yep.
And if you're doing it just for fun, there's nothing at all wrong with that. But part of the fun is seeing that improvement in yourself, and don't compare yourself to position and places and everything else. That it happens. But
because you can only race who shows up on race day. Like if Sam Long and Lionel Sanders show up on race day, then
guess what? Probably not in a podium.
We're probably not going to podium at all.
Right.
So it's just like you can only race who shows up, and the thing is like. Exactly what you said. If I dedicate this to being an A race next year and I get 3 minutes or 2 minutes or even 45 seconds faster, that will be an improvement, and that'll be something that we, that I sit there and go, I improved. The training was working. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. This is a great. I'm so glad we did this. I know we threw it on the kind of calendar, not really late, but we just decided we were going to do it, and I'm really glad we did. And now I'm really looking forward to our conversation next week to dive a little deeper into the event itself and the future of it, and then we'll go from there, man. So kind of great time.
Well, what are you? I think there is talk about doing a redemption race on. Later in September, I think there's a last minute sprint that everybody's talking about. So, we'll see if Danny is.
Now you got my interest.
is coming around to some redemption.
Yeah. So. I'm gonna have to put some thought into that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do. The season's kind of wrapping up here. We have about 1 more month of. Actually try season before the lakes start getting too cold at night, and then it's too cold. So so we'll see if we can wrangle you into another event or not before
let's talk more.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Let's see if my lizard brain can handle that. But
but before it's full on gravel season again. So
good stuff.
Good stuff, man. Gotta do the thing here. Eventually, we'll be high production. Eventually,
right? It's all right. The quality of the content's got to be higher than the production quality.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Please, if you like what we are doing here, leave a like, rate us, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. It really helps us grow and finds us more SufferSooner squad mates. And remember, when the finish line feels impossibly far away, we don't give up, we push harder, we dig deeper, and we find solace in the knowledge that our suffering is temporary and our resilience is forever.